Institutional bias. If you are a victim of family court, you need to listen to this. Particularly institutional bias as a therapist. So if you're a therapist, you're also going to want to listen to this because you're going to want to make sure that you're not making harmful errors. Institutional bias is when people unconsciously align with the institution that they either work for or trained within. And here's the big thing. When somebody like me and like all of my friends come and challenge what's being told, people that work there like therapists think there's something wrong with the individual, not with the institution. It's bias, because if somebody's screaming, the building is on fire, but nobody else sees it, but the one person is right, you'd better get out of there. The building is on fire. For therapists, this is rooted in countertransference. Countertransference is what Freud named a therapist's reaction when working with another person. So transference is like the patient or client's reaction to the therapist. Countertransference is when a therapist has it towards the other person. And we want to look at our countertransference as therapists because that tells us information about our own biases. So many therapists might trust authority or defer their own power to authority and assume the authority knows more than they do because they were also in institutional education, right? Public schools, and had parents that told them to behave and follow rules and were taught to walk in line like most of other Americans. And then there's just the practical part of it, right? So the inner child might be like, if the institution is wrong, am I safe? And that's why so many people can't change their minds about certain medications and other facts that they were told because it makes them feel like their world is upside down. It has to be true. It has to be safe. No, you guys, when there's new information, adaptable people to survive take the new information and apply it. So when they decide that the parent is wrong and the institution is right, despite evidence, so they're minimizing evidence, not looking at it, trusting the institution that gives them a paycheck, that they sacrificed 10, 15, 20, 2 years of their life to, thinking that it must be right, that countertransference is a survival mechanism for them. It soothes them on an unconscious level. If I side here, now I'm safe. If they're wrong and it also who survived historically when there were wars and things? The oppressed or the oppressor? So I think it goes even deeper than that into real survival, right? When the UK invaded Ireland, the ones that survived are the ones that went and agreed to believe everything that they believed and do what they said. So that people pleasing is also that let me survive. And here's the other thing. So if you had a therapist rule against you, they're splitting. If you've ever done any kind of couples work, and I do work and help couples save their marriages, I'm very good at it actually, they split because they're at a stuck point. One person is this reality, the other person is this reality, and how do you reconcile those things? It's very hard if you're not a sophisticated therapist, and so you side with one over the other. And oftentimes it might be the masculine one or the one that's perceived to have more power. Not always masculine, but if they're connected with the institution. So splitting becomes a mess because when you split, it's because people don't want to think about the complexity or don't have the tools to think about the complexity. And so they side with one at the sacrifice of truth. Because truth, although oftentimes simple when it comes into relationship dynamics, has some steps to get to that simple truth. So why have therapists ruled against you? Because if you're the challenging parent or you're the one that's saying this is really wrong, it's safer for them psychologically to think there must be something wrong with you. And here's the bigger thing. If they're doing favors for people, because we know that that happens, put in a good word and they get the child, if they go against that, they get institutional disapproval. And what happens then? Then all those people they work with every day, they're going to have a hard time with them. They might get fired. They might get retaliated against. So to all the imperfect therapists out there that aren't doing their countertransference work, I brought this to your awareness. I hope you take it very seriously, because these attachment injuries that are being caused in these children is unacceptable. And I hope everybody does their work, stands in their courageous self, walks holding hands with fear as you go and you tell the institutions that what they're doing is absolutely morally unacceptable. So therapists, remember, a dysregulated parent is traumatized, not a personality flaw. And they still have every God-given right to have a meaningful relationship with their child. Protective parents are just that, protective parents. There's nothing wrong with them, and that needs a serious overhaul. And it's not okay to legitimize harm by putting it in clinical words. Moral of the story, the thing I want you to take away, is that trauma-informed work requires looking at the entire system, not just at individuals. Everyone went to school and learned about the black sheep in the family, also sometimes called the whistleblower. The whistleblower in the system is usually pointing to how sick the system is.